Go.
Hi, everybody. It's Orlinsky. I am an award-winning children's book author. I am so excited to be with you today. It is not just a regular Saturday. It is National Tooth Fairy Day. So that means we're celebrating the Tooth Fairy. We only do this twice a year, once in February and once in August. And actually, according to a survey that came out yesterday, did you guys know that the average tooth fairy gives $4.03 for every tooth? My daughter has been losing teeth like crazy, and she gets $5 a tooth. So I'm curious what you guys get. So we are at the Barbara's Bookstore in Vernon Hills today. It's such a nice, wonderful location. They recently remodeled and reopened. And before I start reading, I wanted to thank the folks at Barbara's for letting me come read to you today. Everybody who buys a Tooth Fairy's Tummy Ache book, whether you buy it on Barbara's website today or if you come in, it's 10% off. And you will also, the first few people to buy will also get some really cool keepsakes. So we have these little adorable tooth keepsake pouches for boys and girls, and you can put your teeth in them, and some really cute necklaces that you can put your teeth into. So I'm going to get started, and I'm going to also be reading from a really cool app called Novel Effect. And it's a free app right now, and if you download Novel Effect, it gives you a curated soundtrack to a bunch of books, and my book is on there, so you'll hear some fun noises. So without further ado, let's hit it. So The Tooth Fairy's Tummy Ache by Linsky, that's me, and I am the author, and the illustrator's name is Vanessa Alexandri. So I'm going to hold up my phone too so you guys can hear. It happened when I was eating a juicy red apple for snack. I was chewing and chomping when suddenly I bit down and heard a crack. My first tooth was finally out. All it took was something yummy. But when I went to collect it from my mouth, I realized it landed in my tummy. This wasn't the plan I thought of in my head. I had to think of something fast before I went to bed. Oh, so now the girl says, I searched high and low for something tiny and white, even though what I was doing wasn't really right. The tooth fairy wouldn't visit if she didn't have a tooth to take. So I put a kernel of popcorn under my pillow as a replacement fake. So now the tooth fairy comes in, and I'm going to show you. You can see her toothbrush. So she says, this child's tooth looks a little strange and doesn't feel quite right, but I'll trade it in for a silver dollar. Hop on my toothbrush and fly out of sight. So here she goes. And you can see her toothbrush, her tooth hairpiece, and her tooth shoes. So she said, back to the workshop I go to add this tooth to my collection. But this one looks rotten upon further inspection. It's too round to string and too tiny to glue. What could I do with this tooth? I didn't have one clue. So here's the workshop. I call my fairy friends who come over skipping and hopping. But when they get closer to the tooth, all of a sudden it starts popping. Pop, 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 pop. Quickly it spreads from the floor to the ceiling. I'm hunger that I'm feeling. There's nothing left to do but say, ah, and open wide. Popcorn rains in my mouth and fills my belly inside. But a few minutes later, there isn't any mistaking. I feel really yucky because my tummy is aching. So I lay in bed and skip the work I have to do. But what's going to happen when everyone wakes up feeling blue? The grandmas and grandpas would be missing their dentures. My friends won't have necklaces for their dress-up adventures. The night sky will be without all of its shiniest stars. Tooth fairies won't have flying dust, so they'll have to drive cars. Suddenly it hit me. I had a hunch. Maybe this girl lost her tooth while she was having lunch. So I go through the window for the second time tonight. I had to explain to this girl the difference between wrong and right. I tap on her shoulder and whisper in her ear, I won't get you anywhere. Do you hear me, my dear? It's best to be honest and always tell the truth. You should have just told me that you swallowed your tooth. She flashes me a smile with a toothless grin, and I feel a new friendship is about to begin. I'll leave you this notepad so you can write me a letter. Hopefully when you lose that tooth, it'll turn out much better. The end. How did you guys like that book for National Tooth Fairy Day? I hope that everyone enjoyed the book. I know a few of you might have some questions, and so I'm happy to answer them. If you're there, we can see you in the chat. Say hello. I see Allison says hello, and Steph says hello. And as an author, a lot of questions that I often get are, how did I come up with this idea for the story? And I am a parent. I have 2 children, and I think I love to teach my children lessons, but I don't like to say to them, oh, somebody said hi, Lori. Hi, Lisa. So I don't like to tell them I don't like to give them lectures and tell them this is wrong and this is right. And I like to give them lessons through books. And so I was thinking about what could be a really good lesson. And my kids really struggle with white lies. And I thought that maybe we could use the Tooth Fairy of all people to teach kids a lesson about white lies, which is a little ironic that we're using the Tooth Fairy, but I think it's okay for this age group. And so the idea of this book is that you will read this to your children and then talk to them afterwards about the concept of honesty and what kind of decisions did the girl in the book make and how she could have changed her decisions. And that is this book. And I'm looking to see, I have a couple other questions. Someone asked if I'm working on another book. The answer is yes. I haven't really talked about this publicly, but I have a book coming out in 2021. The book is called Balloons for Tiger, and it is about we had a family pet who passed away a couple years ago, and my daughters and I decided that we would release balloons to honor her memory. And we did the balloon release, and I found my kids still asking questions about what happened to the balloons. And so I would tell them the balloons got caught in a power line, maybe the Tooth Fairy saw them, and I realized that there was a really good way to explain pet grief to them in a way that was honest and imaginative, but didn't incorporate religion. And so I had a tough time finding a book like that. And so Balloons for Tiger will be out in May of 2021, and it's a book that will help kids cope with pet loss in a way that doesn't feel forced. I see a question that says, is there more than one Tooth Fairy? Well, this Tooth Fairy makes a cameo in the next book. I think there probably is more than one Tooth Fairy. From what I understand, Tooth Fairies might have different regions. I know that my daughter in Chicago got a little visit from the Tooth Fairy in a note, and she had asked the Tooth Fairy specifically how she deals with COVID. And the Tooth Fairy told her she has a little tiny mask. I see another question, is the Tooth Fairy a boy or a girl? You know, that's a great question. I grew up thinking that the Tooth Fairy was a girl, but I had friends that grew up thinking the Tooth Fairy was a boy. So when we were writing this book, one thing, when I was writing it and I had my illustrator illustrating it, we made sure to show all different representations of Tooth Fairies. Some Tooth Fairies are white, some Tooth Fairies are black, some Tooth Fairies are brown, some are boys, some are girls, some are Asian. We might even have a Tooth Fairy that's an animal. I think it's all about what your child believes in your imagination, but it was really important for me to make sure we showed all kinds of Tooth Fairy representation. What is the going rate for a tooth nowadays? Hi, Samantha. You know, as I mentioned earlier, our Tooth Fairy in our house gives $5. She used to put glitter on the tooth. Or not on the tooth, on the money. And then we found out that stores did not accept that money. Sometimes they thought it was fake money. The only store that took it was the American Girl store. So we had to write a note to tell our tooth fairy not to leave glitter on the teeth. And there is a coin shortage right now. So people are wanting the tooth fairy, hopefully tooth fairies, if you hear this, to leave dollar bills, whatever you feel comfortable with. But the national average is $4.03 a tooth. And I think that many tooth fairies leave a little bit more money for the first tooth. My daughter had a couple cavities. She was in the hospital, and when they did her cavities, they took her two front teeth because they realized they were loose and they wanted to make her feel better. And so our tooth fairy must have known about that really stressful day. Our tooth fairy gave $20 and a Hatchimal to my daughter, but that was just a special occasion. So now she gets $5 a tooth, which is plenty. Does anybody else have any more questions? I also, while we're talking here, I also wanted to mention I have another book that's sold at Barbara's. It's called Being Small Isn't So Bad After All. I'm hopefully going to come on here for National Bullying Prevention Month, which is in October. This book is about Haley, who she was the shortest one in class when she was little, and she wanted to find a book. I wanted to write her a book that told her that it was okay to be different, it was okay to be small. But being small isn't so bad after all. And I'm really, again, excited to be with you guys here today, answering your questions. It looks like we have another one. Where does the tooth fairy keep its money? That's a great question. I don't know. Does anybody know? My kids always think that maybe in the workshop, I'm going to go do this page. We tried to depict the workshop, my illustrator and I, how we thought it would look. So you've got the money being sorted. You've got the teeth being sorted. Here, they're kind of checking off what kind of teeth they have and if they're good teeth or bad teeth. And there's a lot of free resources online too. If you Google tooth fairy, you can find different stationery for your kids to write. If you go to my Facebook page, Lori Orlinsky author, I have some freebies there, some coloring sheets, as well as a little, I'll show you kind of what it looks like. In the back of my book, it's a little stationery that your kids can print out and they can write a note to the tooth fairy. So it looks like this, but it doesn't have anything in it. So thank you guys so much for listening to me. This has been such a pleasure of all days, National Tooth Fairy Day. And just to recap, we are at Barbara's Bookstore in Vernon Hills. They are lovely. The new store is lovely. If you come here, you can come through the Macy's entrance. I really encourage you to check out the remodeled store. And if you're interested in buying the Tooth Fairies book today, it's 10% off. And for the first couple people can get some cool swag to put their teeth in. So a little cute girl with a bow, little cute guy with a bow tie, and then we have some necklaces that kids can wear and put their teeth on. So thank you guys so much for having me. Make sure you shop at Barbara's Bookstores and make sure to follow me on social media using Lori Orlinsky author. Thanks so much and have a great day.